All right, we are live. Hey, how is it going? It is your muscle building coach, Lee Hayward, with another live video Q&A. And I want to make sure that this is up and running and working fine. So for those of you who are tuned in live right now, please post a comment there. Let me know that you can hear me, that you can see me. We are running a wee bit behind schedule here because before I start these video chats, I always like to reboot my computer to make sure that it's working fine, everything's up and running. And when I did, I had to go through these updates and had to go through a whole series of updates. Now, normally it only takes like a minute or two, but man, it was taking forever running these updates. So while that was happening, I actually went in on my other computer, my laptop, which I don't do the live video chats from, and I posted on the chat there just to let people know that, man, like, don't leave. I'm still coming on for the video chat here now. It's just that we are having some technical difficulties, but nonetheless, I'm going to make this work. So the way this works, if you're brand new to these video chats, first off, I want to welcome you. And I'm going to be hanging out here for the next hour and basically just taking your questions through the video chat window and covering topics related to fitness and nutrition. So if you have any specific challenges with regards to your workouts, with regards to your nutrition program, if you're struggling with building muscle, losing fat, any challenges that you're dealing with, maybe it's a specific with exercise related challenges, maybe it's stubborn body parts, maybe it's injury and mobility related, whatever it is that you would like to discuss, please feel free to post that in our video chat window, and I'll do the best I can to help you out over the next hour. So like I said, I'm going to be hanging out here and we're going to be having a chat and shooting the breeze over the next hour. So let's get this show underway. All right. So first off, I want to, today marks the fourth week that I have been caffeine free. I haven't had any coffee or any caffeine for 4 weeks, and quite honestly, I feel really darn good. I have steady energy throughout the day, whereas before, when I was drinking coffee, and I have to admit, I was a relatively heavy coffee drinker. Now, I mean, I'm not saying it was crazy, but I would have probably 3 cups a day was pretty standard for me, and plus sometimes I throw in a pre-workout there along with that. But it was a hefty dose of caffeine when you look at it over the long term. And I found that I was getting to the point where I felt that I was almost semi-addicted to it. I mean, I felt like I needed the coffee, which I guess technically is an addiction in that case, because I couldn't really function without it, right? I'd get up in the morning and I'd be dragging my ass to the coffee pot to have any energy at all to start my day. So I found that it wasn't giving me the effect that I wanted, and I wasn't increasing my energy. It was getting to the point where I needed to have coffee just to have any energy at all. And shut the window there. Noise there. Bunch of jackasses going up and down the road on ATV. All right. The other day we were out for a walk there with Harvey in the stroller, and a couple of jackasses going by on their ATV. I mean, like, first of all, you're not allowed to drive an ATV on the road anyway. But like, despite that, they're breaking the rules by not even obeying stop signs or anything like that, and speeding. So I mean, I don't know, it's just a matter of time for either they hurt somebody or hopefully the cops catch them. But anyway, back to my story, back to the caffeine story. As I say, I was getting to the point where I was trying to drag my ass to the coffee pot every morning in order to have any energy at all, just to function. And it wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. So I said, you know what? I was looking at some information, and I was following some people who actually were advocating, cutting out caffeine. And I was thinking, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot and see how it works. And I won't blow smoke up your butt. The first week was hard. The first few days was really hard. First week was hard, but after that, I actually felt really good. And now I'm to the point where I have stable energy throughout the day. And that's what I want. I mean, that's what I was trying to have when I was drinking coffee and caffeine anyways, that stable energy. But what you get is you get the peaks and valleys. So, I mean, yeah, you go through a phase where you have high energy, but then you go through phases where you have really low energy when you crash afterwards. And I don't want that. I want a stable energy throughout the day. So what I've done instead is I've switched to drinking herbal teas and decaffeinated green tea. So that's what this is. This is actually a decaffeinated green tea that I'm drinking here now. And I find that it gives me the hot drink, the hot beverage that I like, but without the caffeine of the coffee. So and it's going good. You know, I mean, I'm getting up in the morning before the alarm clock. No dragging my ass out of bed in the morning. I mean, I just have steady energy from from morning to night, and it feels really good. All right, so seeing I have that steady energy from morning to night, let's use it for this video chat. We've got Sean joining us. We've got Frederick joining us. Come through, loud and clear. Excellent, guys. Thank you much. All right, so let's just start from the top. And I'll try and be a bit rapid fire with some of these questions because I know I can sometimes drag on too long when I get the gift of gab going. Sean always asks these questions. He says, who do you think would win, Ivan Drago or Clubber Lang? Clubber Lang all the way. I mean, I pity the fool. Mr. T gonna kick some ass. Next question. I was doing sprints the other day at max speed, and on my last one, my hamstring popped. Ouch. Said I went down like a hit by a sniper. It's healing up, but it's still sore shit. Can I speed up the process? When it comes to the hamstring, if you've noticed any discoloration, it's turned purple in the muscle, then that's a sign that you tore some muscle fibers. And obviously you want to rest and let that heal up. Another thing is where you felt the pain, the pop. You can also like feel along the hamstring and see if there's any bumps, because sometimes what happens if you tear a muscle fiber, it's like the muscle fibers tear and they also pop up. So you'll have this like little bump in the groove of the muscle, and very often you'll have discoloration where it turns like a purplish blue color, just like a really bad bruise, and that's the blood from the muscle tear seeping in under the skin. So if you have that, you definitely want to be careful because you've got some muscle fiber tears. If you don't have that and you just literally pulled the muscle, which is probably more common, then you still want to be careful, because I mean, in this stage now where you've pulled the muscle, you're in this phase where if you try and do too much too soon, you can take a minor injury and then turn it into a major injury. And this is what often happens. People will pull something, strain something. I mean, you're working out. I mean, you're putting your body under load, you're under resistance. And in this case, it was sprinting, but you're putting demands on your body. It's only sooner or later something is going to give, meaning you're going to pull, strain, or overwork something. When that happens, you have to be smart and let your body rest and recover. Now, you can do some active recovery and mobility work to help speed up the process, but if you try and push yourself with high-intensity training again too soon, you can take that minor injury and then turn it into a major one, and that's a problem. That's where most really bad injuries occur, is when people are semi-recovered from the minor injury, get back into training, push themselves too much too soon, and then take that minor injury, turn it into a major one. So you don't want to do that. What I would recommend, low intensity cardio, even if it's just stationary bike, walking on the treadmill, walking on the stepper, elliptical, anything of those natures. Just light stretching, very gentle stretching, like bending over, touching your toes, some easy hamstring stretches, but just frequent activity, frequent movement until you start to feel better. And then when you do get into weight training again, or in this case, sprinting again, just go like half effort, like 50%. So instead of picking up at a sprint, just go for an easy jog, see how that feels. And then, pick up the pace a little bit more and a little bit more. And then workout by workout, just gradually build up the intensity until you're back to your previous best effort when it comes to the sprinting or the weight training or whatever. But like I say, be cautious in that recovery phase, because you could take a minor injury and turn it into a major one very easily. All right, another question here. I can close a 200-pound gripper 15 times, but I can't shove 250-pound one all the way once. Will I ever be able to close it? What can I do? I want brute power. Okay. What you need to do is stop doing high reps with the grippers and focus on heavy singles. How I built up my grip strength with the hand grippers was not by mashing high repetitions. I used single rep sets. So what I recommend, and this is all outlined in the hand gripper training manual that I put together, which you can get whenever you order a copy of or whenever you order a set of the heavy grips from my website. So if you've ordered heavy grips from my website, just send me an email. I'll send you that training manual. It's a PDF download. But you should have already gotten it if you've ordered the grippers through my website, leehayward.com. But anyway, what you want to do is heavy single rep sets. So there's two types of sets that you want to do to build up your grip strength. One is what's known as an overcrush. Overcrush is where you take a really light gripper, say a 100-pound gripper, the latest one they have, and you mash that sucker shut with all your force, and you try and squeeze it so hard that you visually try and pretend you're going to break it. Like in your mind, you think, I'm going to squeeze this thing so hard that I'm going to break the spring. You know, I'm going to crush the gripper, overcrush it. And you hold it for about 10 seconds. So that's one set. That's one rep, one set. Then you're going to alternate that with heavy negatives. And what you do for heavy negatives is, I'll just show you. Actually, speaking of a 100-pound gripper, this is actually a 100-pound gripper right now. So overcrush, I'll demonstrate. You take the gripper, you mash that son of a bitch shut, and you squeeze, 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 squeeze with all your force and hold it for 10 seconds. Do the same with the other hand, right? Mash that gripper shut and squeeze, 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 squeeze like you're trying to kill it. Squeeze it as hard as you physically can for 10 seconds and exert maximum force. So even though it's a light gripper, you are putting 100% effort into it. That's an overcrush. A negative is when you take a gripper that you can't close. So let's just pretend that this was the 250-pound gripper. You're going to set it in your hand, and then you're going to use both hands to cheat the gripper shut. And then you're going to just slowly, 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 slowly work on the negative and let that gripper peel your fingers open. And then do the same thing with the other side. So mash it shut. And how you do, you just have it set and use your other free hand to help mash it shut. So you cheat it shut with two hands and you open it with one hand. And let the tension of the spring peel your fingers open. So you're trying to resist the negative the whole time. And even though it's a single rep, it's probably going to have 10 plus seconds of actual time under tension as you're resisting it. So that's what you want to do. You want to alternate overcrushes and alternate heavy negatives. Take a minute or two rest in between each set. The reason for that is because even though you're not going to be out of breath, you want to let the ATP, right, your body's high intensity energy stores. You want to let that recover and regenerate in your body so that you can have maximum strength for your next set. So do that and alternate them back and forth. You know, maybe start off just 3 sets at first and then build it up week by week, 3 sets and 4 sets and 5 sets, etc. And by doing that, you're going to find that your grip strength is just going to go through the roof. And it's going to go up way faster than just mashing easy grippers for high reps, right? So there you go. That's a quick overview of the hand gripper training manual. And again, you get a full copy of that program with the exact workout sets, reps, and all kinds of other tips and tricks all outlined there when you just download that program. So if you haven't already done so, send me an email. Send me an email at leeh@leehayward.com, and I'll hook you up with a copy of that. All right, Frederick joining us. What's recommended for lower trapezius and rhomboids? The lower traps and rhomboids, some good exercises are rows with your elbows high and wide. Face pulls, another really good exercise for that. Those are some of my favorites. But anytime you do, like there's different, you can do a row and you can work different parts of your back depending on how you position your arms. So if you row low to your stomach, either overhand or underhand, you're going to work more of the lower lats. If you row and keep your elbows high and wide, you're going to work more of your upper middle back area. So if you want to work on the lower traps and the rhomboids, you want to do some rowing exercises with your elbows high and wide. Now you can do like bent over rows, or you can do different types of row machines at the gym. A T-bar row is great. A lot of T-bar rows, I know the ones that we have at our local gym, it has 2 sets of grips on it. You've got the wide grip and you've got the parallel grip. I find the parallel grip's good for working the lower lats. That wide grip, good for working the upper back. So the wide grip with your elbows up to the sides, that would be a good one for targeting those muscles. Let's see what else. Okay, some people are talking about me being late for the video chat. I know, I do apologize, but I'll make up for it. We'll still get a good solid hour of chatting here. All right, Miss Video says, how can I remain focused on the diet plan? All right, that's kind of a bit of a vague question there, but I really need to know more context there in order to really specifically answer your question. But when it comes to staying focused on a diet, what you need to do is stay focused on your goal and have, why are you doing this in the first place? If you have a strong enough reason why, you'll find a way to do the how to. That's the key. Now, when it comes to diet, sometimes people are overly restrictive with their diet. And what often happens, this is something I see a common beginner mistake, and it also applies to workouts as well, is you're so eager at the start. Like you want results yesterday, right? You're so eager, you want results as soon as possible. So you go in there and you try and do as much as possible. So when it comes to the diet, for example, if you're trying to lose fat, you go on like a starvation crash diet, right? Like for example, if your maintenance calories is 2,500, you're going to slash it down to 1,000 because you want to lose fat as quick as possible. I mean, if we're talking about workouts, right, you're going to go in there and you're going to train 2 hours a day, 6 days a week, plus cardio on top of it because you want results as fast as possible. Now, I admire the enthusiasm and the dedication, but it's a stupid way of going about it because what's happening is you're just burning yourself out too fast, too soon, and you're not going to be able to stick it out over the long run and actually make progress. It's almost like a rookie entering a marathon, and they think that they're going to sprint their way to the finish. Like if you've ever watched marathons on TV, and it's unless you're an actual long distance runner, it's as boring as anything. But I have done it before. I have watched marathons on TV before. Not the full thing because I got bored. But what I did is I was watching the start of like one of them, the Boston Marathon or whatever it was, and you always see some guys, some rookie marathoners. They get out and they start sprinting off the bat. So they're on TV. They got they're out in the front. They're leading the pack for a half a mile or something like that. And then all of a sudden they burn themselves out and then they get lost way down the pack. While the more experienced seasoned guys just easily pass them by. The same applies with your bodybuilding program. You have to treat it like a marathon, not a sprint. Because if you start off going too hard too soon, you're going to be leading the pack, so to speak, for a little while, but before you know it, you're going to be burnt out, overtrained, or injured, or whatever, and you're just going to be set back. So you need to pace yourself and stick it out for the long term. So that applies with your diet as well. You need to focus on how can you eat as high a calorie intake as possible while still burning body fat and moving in the right direction. So instead of thinking of starving yourself, think of how can I just tip the scale in favor of burning fat without overdoing it and just have this slow, steady progress and keep that up week after week, month after month, and probably even year after year, depending on how much body fat you have. And think of it that way, this long, slow, steady progress versus trying to, crash diet and lose the weight as quickly as possible, because crash dieting never works long term. Because what happens is, you'll crash diet and you'll lose, 20, 30 pounds in 3 months. And then over the course of the next 6 months, you gain back, 40 or 50 pounds back, right? It's the classic yo-yo diet syndrome. So you need to be in this for the long term and not doing it for like a short-term burst. Okay, let's move on. Let's see what else we got here. Neil's joining us. Manuel's joining us. Let's see what else. Welcome. DCP Motown. Haley, hey, how's it going? We have Gaz is joining us. Let's see, Mohammed's joining us. All right, everyone's just chiming in, giving their pleasantries and greetings. Appreciate the support, guys. Okay, let's see. We got a question here. Rockstar's asking, I want to gain weight, but every time I eat more, I end up feeling sick. How do I do it? Okay, I want to gain weight, but every time I end up eating. it could be the same thing as what I just mentioned for the fat loss, but just in reverse. You probably are overdoing it on the bulking side, which also applies. You know, a lot of times people want to gain weight. Instead of thinking, okay, how can I have a slight caloric surplus? They're thinking, how can I shovel down as much food as physically possible and force myself to gain weight? Like they literally force feed themselves to gain weight. And that's not a long-term maintainable solution either. And of course, it's not healthy on your digestive system. But that could be a loaded question. I mean, if you're getting sick from your food, now I don't know if you just mean you're feeling full and bloated and sluggish. I mean, if that's the case, you're probably just eating too much. But if you're actually feeling sick, I mean, it could be some digestive issues that may need to be addressed as well, especially if you're underweight. All right, so it wouldn't hurt to go get a blood test just to make sure that all your base levels are fine in terms of your vitamin and minerals in your body are in optimal order, your hormones are in optimal order and optimal range, I should say. That would be a good thing to do, and that applies for anybody. It wouldn't hurt to have a blood test from time to time just to make sure that everything is where it should be, and to get a physical, right? Make sure that you are where you should be. And if it is, then we can focus on strategically working on the diet. But one thing that you might want to look into, and I actually have a program that you can check out. It's called Cycle Bulking Diet. And just a second, I'll get the link for it because I actually have a new website posted there for this one. You just get it. And I'll even see if I can type it in the chat there for you. New website I just launched for this. Let's just see. All right. Okay. Got it here. I'm going to post it in the video chat for you. This is something that you might want to check out, especially for those of you who are hard gainers trying to gain weight and you find that you just physically can't eat enough. The cycle bulking diet is a method where you're strategically cycling your calories from phases of actually being in a caloric deficit to help prime your body and phases of being in a caloric surplus. So you're not force feeding yourself all the time. You're actually doing so in a very strategic fashion, but it works with your metabolism, not against it. And it actually, by doing this, you can actually make better gains, better quality gains, and leaner gains with less overall food. So it's easier on your system. It's also easier on your budget and food bill as well. But there, I just posted the link. Let's see if that came through there. Okay, I believe it did. CycleBulkDiet.com if you want to go check that out. All right, let's move on. We have Alex is joining us. Do you train to failure on every set? Heck no. No, you do not have to train to failure on every set. And the reason for that is because training to failure is very intense and it increases your risk of injury. And there are certain exercises where I personally would not recommend training to failure, even for advanced lifters. And I'll give you an example. Look at powerlifters, Olympic lifters, and guys like that. Rarely do they rep out to failure, especially with the big, heavy lifts like your squats and your benches and your deadlifts, and if you're looking at power cleans and clean and jerk and snatch and all that. If a power lifter hits failure in those exercises, it's usually because they're attempting a heavy weight and they miss a lift, but they're not actually repping out to failure like a typical bodybuilder does. And by doing that, by actually stopping a set short of failure, it serves several purposes. One, it helps to reduce the risk of injury. And it helps to speed up recovery, because when you push yourself to failure, you're actually tapping your body's limit, and it causes you to actually slow the recovery process. So the only time that I recommend training to failure is usually on smaller exercises, like isolation exercises and smaller body parts, where it's not going to have a big impact in your overall recovery. Like if you rep out to failure with bicep curls, okay, you're going to get a good pump in the arms, but it's not going to overtrain or cause you to burn out the same as repping up to failure with squats or repping up to failure with deadlifts. Now, I'm not saying that you can't do it occasionally, but use it sparingly, because again, it's a double-edged sword. Yes, you're pushing max intensity, which can help to stimulate growth, but it also opens up the door for injury, for overtraining, for burnout. And I've mentioned this hundreds of times. For those of you who've been following me for any length of time, you've heard me say this before, but it bears saying it again. There's nothing that's going to slow your progress down more than getting injured. If you stop a set short of failure, that's not going to slow your progress, right? You do a set of squats and you rack the weight on your own before failure. You don't get pinned down in the bottom position and have to get spotters to actually help you stand up to the top and rack the weight. Same with the bench press. I mean, if you rack the weight on your own versus having repping up failure and getting stapled to the bench and having the spotter pull the barbell off your chest, man, the difference in results that you're going to get is very, very slim. And in fact, by pushing yourself to failure, again, you're opening up the door to injury. And if you get injured, that is what's going to set you back, right? I mean, if you pop your shoulder out of socket, or you tear a pec, or if you're squatting and you screw up your knees or your hips, or you strain your lower back, that's going to set you back a hell of a lot more than leaving a rep in the tank and racking the weight on your own. So, I always, a little motto that I like to go and use is live to lift another day, right? If you're in doubt, just don't do it, right? If you're in doubt, leave it out, live to lift another day. And I actually heard this from an elite level powerlifter. He's the one who told me this motto. And when he said it, and he was making fun, well, not making fun, making reference, I should say, to some of the young guys that you see in the gym who are, Monday's chest day and they're over there on the bench press and, they hit failure, and then all of a sudden their spotter starts, it's the bench press deadlift tag team duo, right? Where the guy is bench pressing and the spotter's deadlifting, and then they've managed to grind out 5 or 6 more reps, right? And then of course they rack the weight and the spotter says it was all you. And we were making fun of it, and he was saying, like, what's the point? What's the point of doing that when they're just opening up the door for injury? You're better to just call it quits, rack the weight, and live to lift another day. So hopefully that helps, Alex. Let's move on. All right, Manuel's got a question saying, Lee, I'm following a 5x5 training split. My workouts, 5 workouts in a row. Split my workouts in 5 workouts. I work out one day, cardio the next. Each body part is trained every 10 days. Should I change the split so each body part is trained more often? Okay, another question there. Do you recommend sleeves when training heavy? All right, you're hitting each major muscle group once over the course of 10 days. Now, the simple answer is, if it's working for you, if you're making progress, keep doing what you're doing, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, I mean, you can still make progress training each muscle group every 10 days. But that is very low frequency. I mean, most people usually recommend hitting each muscle group at least once a week. And a lot of guys recommend even more so. What I would probably try and encourage is structure your program in such a way that you're doing more frequent workouts, but probably less total volume per workout. So, I mean, there's different ways to structure your program. I mean, I don't know you say it's a 5x5 training split, but I mean, there's dozens of different 5x5 programs out there. So I don't know exactly which one you're referring to, but a lot of them will structure the program so you're hitting all your major muscle groups within the span of a week. For example, like the classic Bill Starr's 5x5 program. That's one that I really love. And actually, that's one of our workout of the month program on the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Inner Circle member site. That's one of our programs that we've had, and we constantly go back to it. Like every several months, or probably a couple times a year or so, we'll go back to that program because it's such an effective program. But that hits all your major muscle groups, all your major exercises over the course of a week. So, I mean, you might want to look into either changing the version of the 5x5 program you're doing, or modifying your own program so that you are getting more frequent workouts in there. That's something you can look into for sure. But with that being said, if you're following this program and it's working and you're seeing progress, you're training in a progressive overload fashion, you're getting bigger, you're getting stronger, then, who might argue with it? Results are results. So if it's working for you, keep doing it. But if you feel that it's not working well, or that you could be making better progress, then you might want to look into changing it. Okay, let's see what else we got there. Another question you had there, do you recommend sleeves? I guess you mean like knee sleeves, elbow sleeves. If you don't need them, don't use them. I mean, if you can train without knee pain or elbow pain, then no, I would not recommend them. But they are a great tool, a great crutch if you are suffering from some pain. So if you are suffering from joint pain, they can definitely help offer some extra support. Uh, I would rather you modify your training so that you're not getting the joint pain, and also modify your nutrition, because there's a lot of things you can do nutrition wise too to help ease up joint pain. For example, when it comes to your recovery, a lot of people are just focusing on muscle recovery, but you don't realize joints need to recover as well. And sometimes joint recovery can take longer than muscle recovery, especially as you get older. So for example, I know a lot of guys who are, 40, 50 plus, and their muscles will recover faster than their joints, tendons, and ligaments. So, I mean, if they wanted to, they could probably train 5 days a week based on muscle recovery, but their joints wouldn't stand up to that. So they usually split it up and actually train less frequently in order to allow more time for their joints, tendons, and ligaments to recover. So that's something you might want to consider, how you're splitting up your workouts and stuff like that. You may want to allow more recovery time for your joints. And as far as your nutrition is concerned, a lot of things can help. I mean, essential fats, especially omega-3s, can really help. Fish oil supplements, a good high potency, high concentrated fish oil that's high in omega-3s. I consider that a must-have. Another thing that can really help as well is collagen supplements. This is something I've been using for the past several months, and I've noticed a big difference. I must say, since I've been supplementing with collagen, I haven't had a lot of the aches and pains in my elbows, knees, and hips, and things like that. So that's something you can do. What else? Just your basic vitamins and minerals. Make sure you don't have any deficiencies. Making sure that you're eating a well-balanced diet with a lot of fruits and vegetables to help alkalize your body. I mean, all these things can lead to good joint health as well as good overall muscle recovery and growth. So, I mean, there's bottom line, when it comes to sleeves, if you don't need them, don't use them, but save them for, like, say, when you do need them, and they can be a nice little crutch. Okay. All right, Gaz is saying that I've since giving up the caffeine. He says quitting Tim Hortons is pretty tough. Yeah, well, I was never a big fan of Tim Hortons. I always make my own coffee, but I have, of course, like most people, most Canadians have ventured to Tim Hortons on occasion. But now if I go, I just have green tea instead. And, it works for me. Speaking of the whole caffeine thing, I'm not saying that I'm giving up coffee forever, but I did set a little goal for myself that I wanted to go a full month without any caffeine to just see how it works, how it feels, how my body responds. And like I say, I'm almost to that now. I'm 4 weeks in, so very close to that 30 days. Just after this weekend, now it'll technically be 30 days. So it was an interesting experiment, I must say. And overall, I'm very pleased. Now, will I go back to using caffeine? Maybe, but I'll be more conservative with it. Put it that way. I'll be more conservative. If it gets to the point where I feel that I'm relying on the caffeine for energy, then I think I'll go through another little caffeine detox, if you will, because I don't like having to rely on anything for energy. I like having my own internal energy, and that feels a lot better. And another note on that too, I haven't been experiencing like muscle cramps and things like that, because when you're consuming caffeine, I mean, that's a diuretic as well. So you lose a lot of fluid, a lot of electrolytes and stuff like that. And I found that I haven't been cramping as much since I've cut back on the caffeine, and actually feel better. So some positives there for sure. All right, moving on, we have Riot's got a question saying, have you heard of the snake diet? The guy eats one big meal a day, throws in a 48-hour fast once a week. He calls it a fasting-focused lifestyle. Yes, I've heard of the snake diet, and the whole idea of fasting or one meal a day or all these different, like, people put their own spin on it and put their own name on it. All right, the snake diet, or you know, when we have like different variations of intermittent fasting or OMAD, and this stuff has been around for eons. Like fasting is thousands of years old. Like it's way older and been around long before any of us, right? You know, the old timers were talking about fasting back in the day. Like, you know, a lot of religious cultures, you know, would use fasting as part of their practice, and you know, a lot of the old scientists and that. I think even you know, I mean, the idea of fasting is certainly nothing new, right? I mean, the benefits have been long, you know, established long ago. As far as the different methods of it, I mean, I've used fasting myself in different forms. I've tried intermittent fasting, which I think is a great way to restrict your calorie intake, because I personally think it's easier to eat fewer meals per day than it is to eat smaller meals, right? When I sit down to the table to eat, I like to have a big, satisfying meal. I mean, it's no fun to leave the table feeling hungry, right? That's almost like, you know, starting foreplay and having sex without finishing, right? You don't want to finish before you're satisfied, right? That's frustrating, right? That's no fun. Same thing with starting a meal. You don't want to start that meal and finish before you're satisfied, right? Having to leave the table before you're full is like having to leave, you know, the bedroom before you're finished. It's not fun, right? That leaves you feeling frustrated and agitated and all kinds of stuff. You know, see the parallels between people following a diet and that. But if you can have a few good, satisfying meals where you actually leave the table feeling comfortably full and just eat fewer meals, and that's easy to stick to, right? I mean, I would rather have sex less often, but have good, satisfying sex rather than have sex every day and you know, not leave satisfied, right? Same principle applies. So as far as fasting is concerned, or intermittent fasting, definitely it's a worthwhile strategy and can help when it comes to losing fat. Now, if your goal is to build muscle and increase body weight, I wouldn't focus on that primarily. I think you need the frequency of food in order to get the sheer volume of calories that a lot of guys need to gain weight, and frequent meals can definitely help with that. If you're trying to cram in, you know, a caloric surplus in a very limited window of time, you know, it can be hard to do that. But if you break it up into multiple meals, it's easier on your digestive system, and I think it ultimately is better from a bulking point of view to have multiple meals per day. But from a fat loss point of view, fasting can definitely help. All right, Manuel's got a question. Oh yeah, that was a follow-up question to the previous one. Yeetus, 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 I think it is. Okay, he says, Lee, what are your thoughts on diet drinks while trying to maintain a calorie deficit? I'm assuming you mean like diet soda and things of that nature, these zero-calorie drinks. Look, I've been through both sides of this coin. I mean, when I was younger, I used to drink a lot of diet soda, and I still was able to get lean, burn fat. I competed in bodybuilding competitions consuming diet soda, right? I did that for years. I've also done it without the diet soda and got great results without diet soda. Personally, I would prefer not to have it. I think if you can get into the habit of drinking pure drinks, meaning water, you know, green tea without anything added to it, or herbal tea without anything added to it, just natural unprocessed drinks versus these carbonated drinks with all kinds of additives and flavorings and God knows what other chemicals and fizz and bubbles they put in there. If you can keep that stuff to a minimum, I think you'd be better off. But with that being said, I mean, from a calories in, calories out point of view, it really doesn't make a difference. But from your overall health point of view, I think you'd be better off without it. I actually have a video where I discuss the pros and cons of diet soda, and I think it's called, if you just do a search for Lee Hayward diet soda, if you do a search on YouTube for that, you should find my video. All right, Neil's joining us. He says, Lee, I'm following a 3-way split routine, but I've just had an operation on my leg, so in the meantime, I can just rotate part 1, part 2. Obviously, I guess you were doing like a push-pull leg, so now you're probably just doing push-pull. that's fine. You can certainly do that. Just factor in the recovery. So what you might want to do is, obviously I would split it up so that you're training every other day, giving yourself a full day of rest in between each workout. So for example, if you're doing like a push pull, do your pushing exercises one day, take a full day of rest, pulling exercises the next day, full day of rest, and just alternate it in that fashion. And you can still make some great gains. As far as your legs, I mean, I don't know specifically what you had done, but if it's possible to do light exercise like walking or maybe like stationary bike with no resistance just for the movement, do that. When it comes to recovery, light movement is better than no movement. So even if you're not taxing the muscles or placing high resistance, simply moving them, circulating blood flow, and doing so on a regular basis is a lot better than doing nothing. Like even when I tore my biceps and tore my lat and all these muscle tears that I've had over the years, I still did movement, but it was very, very light. Like I remember with the biceps, what I did is I used to curl a water bottle, right? Just, almost like this, right? I would just do bicep curls with a water bottle as resistance, and I would do 100 repetitions every single day in a full range of motion just to work that muscle, to stretch it and to lightly contract it, stretch it, lightly contract it, and force blood flow and circulation throughout there. And that helped speed up the recovery. And of course, that was done on the advice of some very knowledgeable doctors who I was, consulting with. So light activity is better than no activity when it comes to recovery. That's where the term active recovery comes in. All right, we have Suat joining us. Lee, I'm 17 years old. I'm cutting right now. I'm on 2,300 calories a day, doing cardio every day, every training day, sorry. I go to the gym 6 days a week, which is almost every day. Push-pull legs. Saturday I rest, and I only do cardio. Okay. See, I'm 97 kilos right now, and I'm most of the time home. Okay. I know your questions sometimes get breaking up because you only have a certain limit of characters there, but what's the question? That's kind of a statement. I mean, first off, good for you, man, for sticking to you seem to have a good system in place. Only thing I'm going to caution you on a little bit is weight training 6 days a week. I mean, if you can recover from it, and at 17 years old, you probably can, but just pay attention to your recovery, right? If it starts to feel that you're doing a bit too much, you're starting to burn out or feel like you're burning the candle at both ends and your recovery is causing an issue there, don't hesitate to slack off. One thing that I found myself, because I was in a similar boat when I was in my teenage years, I was so full of piss and vinegar and had so much enthusiasm for working out. I mean, I wanted to get big, and I wanted to get big in a hurry. So I was working out every single day, 2-3 hours a day, and just go, go, go. And yes, you make some progress initially, but it was only after getting around some knowledgeable bodybuilders who kind of seen the error in my ways, and they said, you know what, scale back just a little bit. You don't have to go crazy, but just scale back a little bit. So maybe 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 1 day off, and just alternate that. And that little bit of extra recovery goes a long way. I mean, you will make better gains when your body is rested and recovered. Because you have to remember, you're not building muscle when you're in the gym. In the gym, you are breaking your body down. It's only when you recover that you're actually building muscle. So if you don't allow enough recovery time, you're literally not allowing enough growth time. So it's like, you're digging the hole, but you're not allowing it to fill up, right? You're constantly in this depleted state. You're constantly breaking yourself down and not giving your body enough time to build back up. So, like I say, if it's working for you and you're feeling good about it, ride that wave of momentum. But if you do feel that it's starting to become a bit much, scale back to 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 1 day off, and I think you'll probably make better progress. Now, with that being said, on those off days, you can still do some low-intensity cardio for active recovery and help elevate your metabolism and burn more body fat and all that. But you want to control the high-intensity weight training, because that's the stuff that's going to cause your body to overtrain and burn out. Doing low-intensity exercise, like going for a walk or low-intensity cardio, our bodies are meant to do that, right? I mean, that we are meant to physically move on a regular basis. Like before the inventions of cars and automobiles and public transportation, if we wanted to get anywhere, we had to walk, right? So our bodies are physically meant to walk. It's just most people don't do it anymore, or at least not enough. So you can walk for long distances and do so very frequently. And I mean, it's just going to help to make your body that more efficient, help to burn fat, and it's not going to break your body down, right? Your body is meant to walk, but it's the high intensity weight training that you got to be careful of, because that can cause you to burn out and overtrain. All right, we have Roy is joining us, and he says, Lee, as a 40-plus guy getting back into the gym, what do you suggest? Full body workout 3 times a week or a push-pull legs 3 times a week? Good question. I actually just laid out a full 12-month training plan for my personal coaching students. And the idea, this is a 12-month plan that I laid out specifically for guys over 40. It's what I refer to as my muscle after 40 blueprint. And I laid out the full 12-month training plan. And the first phase of that is a total body workout training phase. And the idea is you just want to build your base, build on your conditioning, improve your work capacity, and just get your body back to a base level of fitness and conditioning. So 3 times a week, full body workouts, nothing too crazy. The idea is just to basically get yourself back in shape, to reintroduce weight training into your program. And then on the off days from that, we're going to do some low intensity cardio, such as walking or cardio machines or whatever. But that's what you want to do. That's what I refer to as yin and yang training, where you do weight training one day and low intensity cardio the next, right? Weight training one day, low intensity cardio the next. And it's a great complementary system because you're stimulating the muscles, and then you give yourself that day of low intensity active recovery to allow everything to rest, recover, and grow, and prepare it for the following day of weight training. So it's that's what I would recommend. And again, if you would like to see this plan and talk about, I have, like I say, a full year training template all laid out. And again, phase 1 is just start with the basics. Phase 2, we actually do move into a push-pull legs. Actually, no, phase 2 is an upper-lower body split. Then we move into push-pull legs, and then we get into more advanced metabolic conditioning and strength and power phases, and all this different stuff later on in the program. But it's done so in a very progressive and gradual fashion, so as that you work with your body and allow it to grow and adapt at a reasonable pace, rather than trying to go in there and do too much too soon, burn out, and cause overtraining and injury. We build it up at a very gradual and manageable pace, so that you don't suffer the drawbacks, but you get all the benefits. So again, if you'd like to discuss that with me, just send me an email, leeh@leehayward.com, and I'll be happy to share that with you. All right, Anthony is joining us. Let's see. What are some mistakes you made in your fitness that, knowing what you do now, you would not have made in the past? Oh, this is a good question. It's a good one. Caused me to think deep. Knowing what I know now. All right. Man, well, let's just start from the beginning. This could be a long one, actually, but I'll try and do my best to keep it concise. When I was younger, I spent a lot of time doing trial and error. And actually, I can kind of condense this really quick, actually, whenever I think about it. I spent a lot of time doing trial and error training. Now, you have to remember, when I started working out, there was no internet. So all this stuff that you guys have available now, like to go on YouTube and search for a video, ask people questions, read blog posts, and everything is, a search away. None of this was available. We had magazines, we had hard copy books, right? I got some books here on the shelf, right? Old classic books. And, that was pretty much it. Now, of course, talking to lifters in the gym. Now, that's good and bad, right? When you're talking, because it depends on who you're talking to, right? Some guys are very knowledgeable and very helpful, and I'm very thankful that I was able to meet up with some of these guys, and how I hooked up with a lot of the more experienced lifters and knowledgeable guys was by actually going to bodybuilding competitions and going to powerlifting meets and staying afterwards and getting to know the lifters and the bodybuilders. And most people in this community are pretty friendly, you know, and pretty open to helping people. I found, especially back in the day before the internet, because we never had the opportunity to really chat training and nutrition with like-minded people as often. Like nowadays, you can go on social media and chat about this, you know, pretty much all day long, right? You know, whether it's commenting to posts or commenting to videos or whatever. But back in the day, you never had that much opportunity to actually talk training with other people. So when you did have that chance and somebody was, you know, like passionate about it, we were very open to sharing and talking about it. So I mean, when I went to bodybuilding competitions and when I went to powerlifting meets and stayed around afterwards so I could get to know the athletes, most of them were very helpful. Most of them were. I mean, I can only, you know, there's only a few that were, you know, not helpful, but overall, I mean, there's amazing community, and I learned a lot. So what I would have done differently if I had to start all over again, rather than going through all this trial and error and trying to figure stuff out on my own, I would have hired a coach right from the get-go. I would have saved myself years of trial and error and just stupid mistakes, you know, like doing too much or doing too little or not eating enough or eating too much or eating the wrong foods. I mean, all that stuff, if you have a coach who can lay out a program for you and a nutrition program and follow along and help to modify your progress, because someone who's been there and done that, like they know all the stupid mistakes that you're going to make, right? They've already been there. They're already down the road and they can point out the obstacles and guide you through. And if I had to start over again, that's the number one thing that I would have done. I would have hired a coach right from the start, and I think I would have been much further ahead and probably wouldn't have suffered as many injuries if I had as I had as well, because the coach can help you to you know, deload your training when the time's needed for that as well. So that's the number one thing I would have done. What else? What else would I have done? More consistency, especially as I've gotten older, like, because I did let myself fall off the bandwagon in recent years, like around 2015 thereabouts, even probably a little bit before then, you know, that time frame, after I stopped competing in bodybuilding, I kind of let myself fall off the bandwagon. It was ever so slightly. I mean, it wasn't major, but it was ever so slightly, and I just, like, if you're not progressing forward, you're slowly falling behind. Even though you think you're maintaining, the reality is there's no such thing as maintenance. You know, you're moving forward or you're falling behind. There's no in between. So if you think you're maintaining, it means you're slowly declining. And that's what I did. So I would have been more consistent, especially as I got older. Then I wouldn't have went through that whole having to start again phase. But with that being said, there's pros and cons to that as well, because where I did go through that, it really was a good learning experience, you know, having to start again from being, you know, pretty much a fat slob and having to lose that weight and get back in shape again. It gave me a new appreciation for the challenges that a lot of people are dealing with who are in similar situations. So I don't know if I necessarily regret that, because that actually turned out to be like an asset in a way, because I can relate to the challenges that a lot of people have. Like when I was competing on a regular basis and staying fairly lean year round, you kind of have a bit of a disconnect, right? Like sometimes you're following people on social media who are athletes and bodybuilders, and they're always in shape. So, like, yes, they know training, they know nutrition, but they probably they don't understand the struggles that, you know, someone who's totally out of shape deals with. But if they were out of shape themselves, they have that connection. They understand the struggles and the frustrations and the challenges, right, that you know, average people go through, and that helps to make them a more relatable and a better coach when helping those average people. Because let's face it, I mean, genetics play a huge role, and I mean, some people are just genetically gifted when it comes to building muscle and burning fat. And if a genetically gifted person who's trying to help a non-genetically gifted person, like, there can be some disconnect, because what may work really well for them may be total disaster for someone who doesn't have the genetics and the body type to respond to that type of training or nutrition. So I know this is a long-winded question here, but basically, Anthony, the number one thing that I would have done, and I think would have saved me years of trial and error and made better progress, was just hire a coach right from the get-go. I mean, it's the hands down the single best thing that you can do. All right, let's move on. I'm going to answer a few more questions because, again, we did start late, so I do want to go for the full hour plus that I always do. Alex is joining us. He says, Lee, I hit chest 1 time per week and shoulders as well for heavy reps of 5 to 8. I'm on an upper-lower split. However, my shoulders aren't getting stronger. Do you think it'd be okay to add in extra shoulder work? Yes, you can certainly do that. If what I would recommend, okay, you're training chest and shoulders once a week, split up your chest and shoulders into 2 workouts and try and space them apart. So you got a few days of recovery in between. And that will help, because even though the shoulders are secondary muscles that come into play with your chest workouts, it's nice if they're stubborn, you want to give them their own dedicated training day. So what I would recommend on your chest day, throw in some work for your rear delts and upper back as extra work. So like, do all your chest training that you normally do, whatever it is, your presses, your flies, your pec deck, cable crossovers, and whatever. And then at the end of that workout, throw in some sets for your rear delts and upper back. Could be face pulls, reverse flies, whatever, but throw in a little bit of work for rear delts and upper back. Then have a dedicated shoulder day where you're going to do like heavy overhead presses and side lateral raises and all that kind of stuff, along with some more work for the rear delts and upper back. And then even on your back day, make sure to throw in some extra work for rear delts and upper back. So you can actually hit the rear delts and upper back 3 times a week, but do so with controlled volume. I mean, I'm not saying do 20 sets for rear delts 3 times a week, but maybe do 3 or 4 sets for rear delts 3 times a week, because that frequent stimulation is going to help to keep your shoulders in balance and help to speed up growth. Because the root cause of most shoulder injuries and the root cause of lagging shoulder development is usually underdeveloped rear delts and upper back. If you can balance that out, it's just going to help to speed up the process all over. So that's the lagging area for 99% of trainers out there. The rear delts and the upper back are the lagging muscle groups. So you definitely want to give those extra priority to help balance them out. Okay, let's see. We have NTN Vlogs. What's your take on strongman training for beginners? Strongman training for beginners, that's kind of an oxymoron, because it's in order to do strongman training, you have to be in shape. Like, it's not a beginner's. Like, if you can't do basic beginner exercises, you have no business trying to do strongman exercises, in my opinion. I would build up a base level of conditioning first and then look into strongman training afterwards. Like, bare minimum, have at least a year of solid progressive overload training under your belt before even looking into strongman training. That's the way I would do it. I mean, because build up your base with machines and exercises that are not dangerous. Like, if you start trying to lift sandbags and kegs and stones and flip tires and all that stuff, I mean, I suppose you could do it, but it's. I would rather someone build up a base conditioning level with like just basic barbell, dumbbell machines and bodyweight exercises first. Get your fitness level up and then transition into strongman afterwards. I wouldn't recommend strongman for beginners. Now, with that being said, if you mean a beginner to strongman, meaning you've already been doing bodybuilding type workouts for several years and now you want to transition into strongman, and you are a quote unquote beginner to strongman, that's a different scenario altogether. If that's the case, what I would recommend, get a coach. Get a coach who is familiar with strongman training, who has a strongman gym and has access to all this stuff, and who can guide you. And preferably get a coach who understands training for beginners, because one of the drawbacks is sometimes a coach who's used to working with high-level athletes may push beginners too hard too soon, right? So you need a coach who's aware of that and understands your body, your limitations, and progresses you in a gradual fashion so that you don't get hurt. Because there's a high risk of injury when you're lifting awkward objects. You know, there's a high risk that you can pull or strain something or injure something, right? I mean, my first time to a strongman gym, I tore my bicep, right? You know, first time ever, and it was just pure stupidity. If I had a coach or someone to kind of guide me, that wouldn't have happened, right? So get yourself a coach. Like I said before, it's one of the best things that you can do. I mean, it's one of the best investments in your health and fitness that you'll ever make. All right, we have TS joining us. He says, thanks for answering my question last time. And he says, how do you train martial arts and do weights? The thing, the key here is recovery, because what you need to look at is when it comes to doing anything in terms of your fitness, you only have so much recovery. It's not like you have 100% recovery for martial arts and 100% recovery for weight training. You only have 100% total. So you have to figure out how you're going to divide that up amongst the martial arts workouts and the weight training workouts. So you can't go, 100% in both directions. It just is not going to work. So you need to factor that in. What I would recommend, depending on what level of martial artist you are, I mean, if you're just kind of like a casual, you go to a martial arts class 2 or 3 times a week, then do that. Go to your martial arts class 2 or 3 times a week, and then supplement that with a couple weight training workouts a week. Maybe total body workouts initially, or as you get more advanced, maybe you want to split it up, maybe like do a upper body, lower body split, or maybe like a push-pull split or something along those lines. But you really just need to find that balance of how you can factor in the recovery for both, and also factor in what's more important to you, right? Is the weight training more important, or is the martial arts training more important, and adjust your training accordingly. And there's no right or wrong answer to this. I mean, I went through a phase of my training several years ago where I really wanted to have a break from bodybuilding, and I just wanted to try martial arts. So I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I did some MMA training, and I also did some boxing training. Now, I never got in the ring and fought, but I did the training. And it was a nice change of pace, but I really went all in on the martial arts training. And my weight training workouts, they suffered big time, right? Like I lost muscle, I lost strength, but at the same time, my endurance and my flexibility and athletic conditioning in terms of martial arts went up big time, but my muscle mass and strength went down, right? So, it was a compromise. Now, it was a compromise I was willing to make, but again, you have to factor in what's more important to you. Is martial arts more important? Is weight training more important? And adjust your training accordingly, right? You can't basically go all out in both. That's what I'm trying to say. All right. Adolf saying, what do you think about cluster sets? When it comes to the different set and rep patterns, I mean, the simple answer is, man, everything works. Everything works, but nothing works forever. So, I mean, you can do all the advanced training programs. I mean, you can do drop sets, super sets, giant sets, cluster sets, whatever, right? I mean, you can implement all these different training modalities into your workouts. The main thing is are you training in a progressive overload fashion? Are you able to recover from those workouts? And if you are, it really doesn't matter. So, I mean, if you want to incorporate cluster sets in terms of like different training variety, then hey, by all means, go ahead and do so. Personally, I do straight sets for most of my workouts. Sometimes I'll do super sets, like working agonist and antagonist muscle groups, meaning opposing muscle groups. But usually I just do regular straight sets, to do all my sets of one exercise and then just move on to the next exercise and the next exercise. I usually don't, get too fancy when it comes to the different set and rep patterns, unless I'm doing maybe I'll superset back and forth biceps and triceps, or maybe like leg extensions and leg curls, or something like that. Sometimes even chest and back. But for the most part, I just do straight sets. And, that's my personal preference, but not to say that the other methods are not good or valid. It's just, you have to kind of find what you find works the best for you and what you enjoy. I mean, what you'll stick with. All right, let's see what else. So Sean's got a question here again, asking about hand grippers. He says, are they enough to get big ass forearms, or is direct forearm work required? You can build big forearms with just grippers alone, as well as this secondary stimulation your forearms are going to get from all your work in the gym. I mean, anytime you do other exercises in the gym, you're grabbing barbells and dumbbells and machine handles and pull-up bars, that's all working your forearms. And when you do curls and rows and presses, that's all working your forearms. I mean, your forearms come into play all the time. Whenever you're lifting weights or doing physical activity, your forearms are coming into play. Now, if you want, you can do some isolation work like wrist curls and reverse curls and things like that. But from a practical point of view, if you're only going to spend so much time on forearm training, like if you have limited time, I think you'd be better off focusing on your grip than doing wrist curls and reverse curls. Because I've used to do a lot of reverse curls and wrist curls and all that kind of stuff when I was younger, and it really doesn't. It's good for like a pump up, but it's not building real solid grip strength. Like your grip strength is the key to forearms. If you have a strong grip, your forearms are going to just grow as a side effect of that. So I think if you want to prioritize one thing, prioritize the grip, and then you can add in the other stuff as supplementary work afterwards. If you want, but grip is the key. All right, my personal trainer has me doing circuit type weight training program. It's killed my gains. How do you pick a good personal trainer? All right, that's from TS. That same fellow who's asked about martial arts and weight training. Okay, how do you pick a good personal trainer? That you have to look at it. That's a loaded question because there's a communication issue there as well. Because I mean, there's a lot of good trainers out there, and a good trainer is someone who's going to, first of all, you have to have the experience, right? I mean, like there's a lot of people who just passed a certification course or just started working out a few years ago. They have the credentials to call themselves a personal trainer, but they just don't have the real world experience. So again, I'm not knocking that because everybody has to start somewhere, right? But if you're looking for a good personal trainer, talk to the person. I mean, like, do an interview with them or research them, find out, what are their credentials? How long have they been around? Are they just getting started or have they been doing this for 20 years? If they've been doing it for 20 years, okay, that's probably a good sign, right? They've been around the block. I also ask, the type of people that they've worked with. Have they done, bodybuilding or strength training or powerlifting or worked with athletes? And try and find someone who has experience in whatever it is that you want to achieve. So if your goal is to build muscle and strength, then find someone who specializes in helping people build muscle and strength. If your goal is fat loss, then find someone who specializes in fat loss. Now, I know there's going to be some carryover to this, but again, you want to find someone who has a track record of doing what it is that you want to do yourself. And then you need to have some good communication because, like right now, okay, your personal trainer's having you do circuit routine and you say that it's killing your gains. Well, what do you mean by that? I mean, obviously, you're not going to lift as heavy doing a circuit program as you would if you're doing like a 5x5 power program, but maybe there's a reason your trainer has you doing this, right? I mean, you need to have that communication and say, okay, well, why are we doing this? And say, my goal is blank. My goal is to get as big and strong as possible. So why are we doing this? And then have him or her explain, the method to their madness, if you will, right? Why are they doing this? Maybe this is like a deload training phase, and they have, your next training phase is going to be some heavy mass and power building program, or whatever. Like you really need it's deeper than just, okay, they're having me do circuit routines and it's killing my gains. Like you need to look what's deeper than that. Like, why are they having you do that? And you need to communicate what it is that you want to achieve and see if what they have planned for you is in line with what you want to achieve yourself, right? So there has to be that two-way communication back and forth between you and your trainer, right? It's a common thing. Like a lot of people will blame the trainer. Like if they don't get the results they want, they'll blame the trainer. Oh, it's the trainer's fault. I didn't get in shape because it's the trainer's fault. Well, you need to communicate to the trainer what it is that you want and communicate to the trainer how your body's responding and how you feel about this, and then have this back and forth conversation, right? It's not just a one-way street. It's not just the trainer doing everything. You have to give that trainer feedback so that they can modify your program accordingly. I mean, prime example of this, I remember last year I had someone sign up for my coaching program, right? And bottom line, oh, I've tried trainers in the past and nobody could get me any results and blah, blah, blah. So he decided to come on board with me. And I said, okay, sure. So we designed a program, laid it out. And then I get I customized the program, had him fill out, we had a detailed phone conversation. We were on the phone a few times, and and had him fill out a detailed questionnaire. So I knew what his challenges were, what his program objectives were, and everything else, his situation, blah blah blah. Laid out a training and nutrition program, had it all outlined for him. I said, all right, here you go. You follow this program, and I'm going to follow up with you. So anyway, follow up with him. A month later, how are things going? Oh, the program's not working for me. I said, oh, okay, so what's on the go, right? And then have some conversations back and forth. Turns out he didn't even follow the program, but he was blaming me and blaming the program that he never followed because it wasn't producing results. Like it's not always the trainer's fault, right? It has to be that two-way conversation, right? It's like going to school. Like you could go to the best school, you could go to or the best college, have the best professors, the best course curriculum, all this stuff. But if you don't show up, it doesn't matter how good the school is, doesn't matter how good the teacher is or how good the course curriculum is. If you don't show up and do the work, then you're not going to get the results. So the same thing applies with the trainer. So again, it's a two-way street. All right. So there, hopefully that answered your question. I know it was a bit of a rant, but hey, sometimes rants are good. Alex is asking, can you explain progressive overload? Yes, I can do that. Progressive overload is simply forcing your body to do more work over a period of time. So it could be increasing the weight that you're lifting. It could be increasing the repetitions that you can do. It could be increasing the volume of sets that you're doing. It could be doing the same volume of work in a shorter period of time. These are all methods of progressive overload. It's basically forcing your body to perform more work in a given unit of time. And over time, you want that to build up and build up and build up. I mean, a prime example, like let's just say you're starting off and you're lifting 100 pounds in the deadlift. And then next week you add 5 pounds to the barbell. So now you're doing deadlifts with 105 pounds. And then the following week you add another 5, and another 5, and another 5. And over the course of the year, you build that 100-pound deadlift up to a 200-pound deadlift. That is progressive overload, where you gradually build it up. And obviously, you're going to be a lot stronger and have more muscle on your frame if you can deadlift 200 pounds with good form versus when you could just lift 100 pounds with good form. So that's the basis of progressive overload. But there's more to it than just adding weight. It could be increasing the reps, it could be increasing the set, or it could also be doing the same volume of work in less time. So those are all methods. But the main one that most of us focus on from a strength point of view is usually related to the weight on the bar. How much more stronger are you getting in terms of how much weight are you adding? Okay, we have Azim joining us, and he's a regular to the video chats. Your reply about alternate day split made very easy for me to calculate my macros and calories. Thanks for that. Another question about it is, can I take one day off in that or can't? Okay, well, I need to read that again. Hang on there, guys. Your reply about the alternate day split made it very easy for me to calculate my macros and calories. So thanks for that. Another question, can I take one day off in that or can't? I mean, I guess you mean, can you take like a day off your diet? I mean, you could take a day off your diet or a day off your training. I mean, in the greater scheme of things, like having a day off isn't going to really make or break your progress, as long as it is just literally that, a day off. Like everybody's going to get off track whether you want to or not. Life is going to get in the way with your training. So, I mean, everyone's going to miss a workout from time to time. Everyone's going to screw up their diet from time to time. I mean, that's inevitable, right? I don't care who you are or what your situation is. Everyone's going to fall into something like that sooner or later. Like nobody is perfect all the time, right? Even professional athletes, they're not perfect all the time either. What matters though is how fast you can get back on track. So if you do have a day where you screw up, or you purposely decide to take a day off or whatever, that's fine. You can do that, but make sure you get back on track the very next day or the very next meal or the very next whatever. Like, don't let one day off turn into more than that. Like, this is a common scenario you see a lot of people make. It's like with their diet, for example. They cheat on their diet, and then they say, oh, I blew it for today. Oh, well, I'll start my diet again tomorrow. So they continue cheating for the rest of the day, right? And then tomorrow rolls around and like, well, I already cheated yesterday. You know what? I'll pick it up next week. Like here it is, Friday afternoon. You know what? I already cheated today. I blew my diet for today. The weekend's here. You know what? Hey, I'll start my diet on Monday. Yeah, Monday I'll get back on track. So now they took one cheat meal and then they turned it into a full weekend of cheating. And then they want to start over again on Monday, right? Whereas if you cheated, you don't wait till Monday. Your very next meal, you get back on track, right? You screw up your workouts, you miss a day. The very next day, you get back on track. The difference between someone who's successful and moves forward is how fast that they can recover from their mistakes. It's not that they don't make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. It's how fast you can recover from those mistakes. That's what's going to determine success or failure. And this applies in so many areas, like not just bodybuilding and fitness, but anything. I mean, like in business, right? If somebody, like, because someone has a successful business, it doesn't mean that they don't make mistakes. I mean, they're making mistakes all the time. It's but they can recover from those mistakes, learn from them, and course correct. I mean, if in sports, the same thing applies. It's not that you don't make a mistake. Everybody makes mistakes and screws up, but they course correct. They learn from their mistakes and they get back on track, right? The sooner and the faster you can get back on track, the better your progress is going to be. So to go back to your question, I mean, can you take a day off or whatever? Yes, there's nothing wrong with doing that. It's just make sure that you get right back on track the very next day or the very next meal or whatever. Okay. How do you deal with hunger cravings? This one's from Enfrost86. How do you deal with hunger cravings? I rather than wasting more time, not that your question is a waste of time. I don't mean to say that, but I actually posted a video not too long ago answering this exact question. So it's right up on my main channel page now. I'll actually get the exact title for you there now. Just give me a minute there, YouTubers, because that'll be quicker for me to answer it because it was a good video, and I want to refer you to that video. It's 4 tips to control your cravings and reduce your appetites. It was posted 3 weeks ago. It's up on my main channel page. If you just do a search for Lee Hayward, control your cravings, you should find it, or you can just open up my video tab on the main channel page and scroll through. It was posted 3 weeks ago. Full video, 8-minute long video covering how to do that. Okay, moving back over to our, guys, I gotta play around with my screen here. It's where I open up another tab here. Now I gotta get, shit, where's that to? Come on, get back on track here. There we go, okay. Where was I? I lost my spot now where I just opened up a new window. Okay. We have Life of Chris. He says, I do manual labor. I do a lot of cardio and lifting all day, but nothing too heavy like I would while training. I'm exhausted when I'm done with the day. Should I still do a workout afterwards too? All right, I can relate to that because when I was younger, I did have like summer jobs doing manual labor. So that definitely does play a role into your whole recovery. What I would recommend, you still want to train, but try and structure your workouts. I mean, obviously, you're not going to be doing daily workouts or whatever, but maybe 2 to 3 days a week, you're still going to go to the gym and focus on more high-intensity training, really doing those heavy compound lifts. Even if you did 2 days a week, where you just went in and did squats, benches, deadlifts, and overhead presses, you did that 2 days a week. That would still help you to build mass, get stronger, because you're doing a lot of stuff. I mean, depending on the type of labor work you're doing, you're probably doing a lot of gripping, a lot of lifting, a lot of carrying. So I mean, your back and your arms and your forearms and grip are getting a lot of work, and you're moving around, so you're getting a lot of cardiovascular type activity as well. So you don't need to duplicate that in the gym with more of that stuff. So just focus on the high intensity, big lifts that you're not getting, and do that along with your job. And you can actually, make both of it work. I mean, some of the strongest guys that I know when it comes to like real world functional strength are guys who work physical labor jobs. I remember a few years ago when I was introducing hand grippers to a lot of people here locally, here in Newfoundland, because years ago, like I'm saying maybe, oh shit, 10, 15 years ago, like there was no one using hand grippers. Because I started with hand grippers back in 2004, and I became a distributor for heavy grips back in 2004. So I was introducing them to some people that I know who own supplement shops and stuff around here, and they were carrying the grippers in there as well. And I remember one guy in particular, he was just getting started with working out, but he worked as a mechanic for years. So in a garage, twisting wrenches, working on cars for years. And he wasn't a really big guy. He was just like an average build, but he had a grip like a vice. And I remember like the hand grippers, he took like, I don't know what it was at the time, the heavy grips 300 or whatever the hardest gripper was back then. They've since added the heavy grips 350. But he took that, and I mean, he could just mash that shut just like it was a stick of butter or something. He just like crush, right? And I'm like, holy shit. I mean, the raw grip strength that man had just from years of physical labor was way beyond whatever you'd get in the gym lifting barbells and dumbbells, right? So, I mean, some of the strongest guys that I know, I mean, it's not from in the gym. It's just from years of hard work. Another example, my brother-in-law, he works as a carpenter and a boat builder. And, just brute strength, grip, forearms, strong back. I mean, like stuff that, I mean, I couldn't keep up with him. Even at my strongest weight back when I was competing in powerlifting, I still couldn't keep up with him when it just came to like real old-fashioned hard work stuff. I mean, he just was brutally strong. And again, never stepped foot inside a gym. I mean, just years of hard work, back-breaking work. I mean, that stuff builds strength like nothing else. So don't feel like your manual labor job is a hindrance to your bodybuilding, because it's probably actually a blessing in disguise. You'll probably build muscle and strength that most guys in the gym won't, because you're doing that manual labor work. All right, let's move on. All right, N Frost is asking, have you heard of Phil Hernon and thoughts on his full body 1 set a day program? Phil Hernon, that name sounds so familiar, but I can't put a face to it. If I'm not mistaken, he's an old school bodybuilder. But anyway, I'm not familiar with his full body 1 set program. I'd have to go look it up, so I can't really answer that question right now. Woodulos is joining us, a regular. Greetings from Scotland. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate the support. Mohammed is saying, please answer my question. Well, that's what I'm doing. I'm going through them. Amton's saying, having a problem getting enough protein and macros when doing intermittent fasting. Does doing a 16-8 fast, any tips? Protein shakes. Protein shakes can definitely help when you're doing intermittent fasting to get your protein intake high. That's what I would do personally. Little things like a protein smoothie, just topping up your meal with a protein shake afterwards. If you're having like oatmeal or something like that, mixing protein powder in with your oatmeal. If you're having like a Greek yogurt or something like that, I'm mixing a scoop of protein powder with Greek yogurt, stir it up. I mean, make it almost like a chocolate pudding, if it was a chocolate flavored protein, that is. But yeah, protein powder is a godsend when it comes to intermittent fasting and meeting your protein intake. Because if you're trying to get 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body weight per day, let's just assume you have 200 pounds of lean body weight. I mean, again, I don't know how big you are, but to keep it simple, let's assume you need 200 grams of protein per day. To try and get that in a few meals, that's a lot. And that's hard to do, especially if you're eating solid food. So that's where protein supplements can be a huge advantage, right? I mean, you could easily get half your protein intake with a few scoops of protein powder. So that's one thing that I personally do myself when I follow intermittent fasting, and I find that it makes things so much easier. Another thing that helps too is start your meals with protein food first. So protein and veggies, start with that, and then go to the carbohydrates afterwards to fill up. Don't fill up on the carbohydrates first, because what's going to happen is you're going to bloat your belly with that and not have enough room to get your protein and veggies. You want to get the good quality foods in first and then have the filler food afterwards, which is the carbohydrates. So personally, the way I like to do it from a fat loss point of view is I actually start with veggies first, then I'll have my protein, then I'll have my carbohydrates, you know, the rice, the potatoes or pasta or whatever. And I find that that works really well. If I did it the other way around, it'd be a lot harder to get the protein and veggies that I need. So that, along with supplementing the protein powder, will help you meet your macros when it comes to intermittent fasting. All right, Logical Order is asking, can I build muscle if I work out, but I'm in a calorie and protein deficit? All right. Calorie deficit, yes, because you can still stimulate muscle growth while being in a calorie deficit, right? But protein deficit, well, why? Why are you in a protein deficit? You need protein in order to stimulate muscle growth, because protein is the raw material your body needs for building muscle. So to kind of put things in perspective and give you an example, like you could take someone who's overweight and out of shape, have them follow a good solid diet plan, a good solid workout program, and they can lose body fat while building lean muscle at the same time. You know, like just put some numbers out there. I mean, it's very possible for someone to lose 20 pounds of body fat while gaining, you know, maybe 2 or 3 pounds of lean muscle mass in the process. So technically they are burning fat and building muscle. But overall, they're still getting smaller. They are still losing weight, right? Granted, it's not all is the weight is mostly body fat, but they are gaining a little bit of muscle in the process. That is possible with a proper diet and training program. What's not possible, at least not naturally possible, is for someone to get bigger and get leaner at the same time. So, I mean, you're not going to go from, like, say, 200 pounds of, you know, a soft and smooth 200 pounds to 230 pounds ripped and jacked, right? You're not going to make that kind of a transformation in a single training phase. I mean, to go from a fat and pudgy 200 pounds to a lean and ripped 230, I mean, that could be a lifetime of training to make that kind of transformation, because of the amount of muscle that would need to be gained in addition to the fat that would need to be lost, right? So you're not going to get bigger and leaner, but you can lose body fat while still increasing your lean muscle. But the thing that I don't like about your question there, you're saying being in a protein deficit. Well, you need to consume the right ratio of you know, protein to calories. I mean, simply just eating low calories is not enough. You want to have a high protein intake so that you're providing your body with the raw materials it needs for building muscle and recovering from your workouts. All right, and guys, all these questions, I know I'm kind of like scratching the surface with this stuff, but if you would like some help with this, if you have, you know, more specific questions about your own individual situation, feel free to send me an email, you know, leeh@leehayward.com, or head on over to my website, leehayward.com. You know, send me an email. I'd be more than happy to have a chat with you and see if we can come up with a strategy to help you move yourself in the right direction towards your fitness goals. All right. Well, guys, I'm actually going to get ready to clue this up, because I do have another appointment that I have to get to very shortly, actually within about 20 minutes or so. So I'm going to have to clue this one up. Thanks again for tuning in. Thanks for all the questions. Again, know we were a bit late getting started, but we had a great chat nonetheless. So thanks for tuning in. I will have the replay posted up within the next 48 hours with the timestamps and all that, so you can go back and check out the questions that interest you the most. And in the meantime, I have another video, another training video coming this Sunday. I'm trying to get myself on a YouTube schedule now, rather than just randomly posting videos, which I've been guilty of doing. I'm getting myself in the situation now where I want to have a consistent upload schedule. So every Sunday, every Wednesday, and every Friday, I'm going to have new videos. Now, Sunday is going to be training related. Wednesday is going to be nutrition related, and Friday is going to be our live video chats. So that's the schedule that you can look forward to. So every Sunday morning, brand new training related video. Every Wednesday morning, going to be a brand new nutrition related video. And every Friday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, we're going to have our live video Q&A. So it's something that you can look forward to. And feel free to call me out on that. If I screw up that schedule, feel free to call me out on it. I do appreciate it. I would like to have some positive peer pressure to hold me accountable. But that's what I want to do. I want to get into a consistent schedule because YouTube likes that. YouTube likes consistency. And of course, you, the viewer, like it as well. Because I've been guilty of just kind of randomly, haphazardly posting up videos as I make them. So like I'd make a video and then I'd upload it, and then it might be, you know, several days or maybe even a week later before I got around to making and uploading another one. So I want to have a consistent upload schedule of 3 videos per week, and just to provide ongoing content for you guys, and to also help to grow my channel and work with YouTube's algorithm. So you can look forward to that, and there you go. I'm Cluing It Up. Over and out. Have yourself a great weekend. Talk to you next week.